Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple.
In this crushing win over Ten Hag's United, Klopp showed that he's still elite, with his in-game tactical adaptations letting Liverpool run out 7-0 winners, with a strong second half performance, though the XG did show a hyperclinical Liverpool performance. But what tactics did we see on display from Ten Hag, and what exactly did Klopp change? Let's take a look. When United were defending in more open play situations, they had things more under control, with a 4-1-4-1 defensive structure, with the wingers defending somewhat narrowly. But what killed United in this match was their pressing structure when they did look to be more proactive to get the ball back. And what's interesting is that Liverpool actually had a similar press shape in some aspects, but later on we'll look at what Klopp did differently to compensate for that shape. But when United were being active, what we would see is that Rashford would press one of the centre-backs with the far side winger looking to join, whether it was Antony, or if Rashford was pressing Van Dijk, would see Fernandes come in off the left-hand side. And this is a shape we've generally seen a lot from Ten Hag of late. And this shape tends to leave the fullbacks with a little more room, and the problem in this match was that Trent and Robertson are elite on the ball fullbacks. So here we see that Rashford is looking to pick up Van Dijk, so Fernandes has begun to come in central to press Konate, and Robertson may be marked by Antony, but this means that Trent on the far side has more room. But this problem could be even worse than just these two men being committed. Alisson could be quite involved in the build-up in the first phase, with Van Dijk and Konate splitting to form a genuine back three, which would also allow Trent and Robertson to push higher up and provide the width. And in these situations, Fernandes would pick up one man, Rashford another, and it would mean that Antony would join in as well, meaning that the whole front three was committed. So Robertson and Trent had even more room available. And again, this spells major danger because Trent and Robertson are elite. So here we see Alisson being active in the build-up. So Fernandes, Rashford and Antony all come central in order to back up this pressing shape. But Klopp made this more effective because it wasn't just about what was going on in this first phase. Naturally, the shapes used by both Klopp and Ten Hag set them up perfectly for a more man-to-man battle in the midfield that could often look like this. What we would often see in this first phase is that Elliott would look to push up high on the right-hand side, looking to overload Shaw in this 2 versus 1 situation. But as it stood in the midfield, United could just shift across to prevent that overload, although the fullback would still be free. And what we did see is that Hakpo would be willing to drop into the midfield at times to make it a 4 versus 3. But in a situation like this, where he is the furthest man out towards the flanks, the overload is less impactful, so Liverpool could allow him to have that space in this type of situation. So here we see United's midfield effectively man-to-man. Elliott moves to the right so Casemiro can cover. And here we see that Hakpo has dropped into the midfield, so Fred moves towards him. And because Henderson is the furthest from the ball side, he is left as the free man, but is not found in this situation. But essentially this is what United had to do when they were 4 versus 3 down. But Liverpool could make the Hakpo presence even more telling. What we usually see when Ten Hag uses this pressing shape is that as the ball travels to the fullback, he's willing to commit Dalot across, making the rest of the back 4 shift into a situation like this. However, in this match, Hakpo tended to drop deeper into this left-hand side position, with Núñez pushing high. So Núñez's presence would mean that Dalot would be reluctant to push forward due to his pace. And even if the rest of the back 3 looked to shift across as we saw before, Hakpo would still be the free man in this midfield position. So what we saw instead was that Varane would often have to commit to drop in deep with Hakpo, leaving a massive gap in the backline, whilst Robertson was still the man with a lot more space, as we see with both fullbacks getting the most touches for Liverpool. So here we see the positions Hakpo often took up on this left-hand side. In this situation, Antony is deeper, but when he was higher looking to press, it would mean there were 2 men potentially free. Here's another perfect example with Hakpo dropping deep on the left and Robertson providing the width. In this scenario, Varane has had to follow, and out of shot, Núñez is locking up Dalot. So there had been a gap between the 2 defenders that Núñez was looking to exploit with the central run, but it is intercepted. We see shades of everything mentioned in the lead up to the first goal. Firstly, with the front 3 being drawn into Liverpool's back 3, and Robertson having the space to receive. The ball is worked back and we see United's front 2 shape, with Fernandes being drawn in, now leaving Trent free. and Hakpo was in this left-hand side position. United's midfield is man-to-man, with Fred keeping an eye on Henderson, meaning Hakpo is still free on the left-hand side. Now Alisson finds Robertson, with Antony having been high up the pitch, and in this scenario, rather than Núñez staying wide to lock up Dalot, he moves central to lock up Varane instead. So, Dalot aggressively closes down Robertson, Hakpo has the run on Fred into the space. So Fred is in an unfamiliar right-back position, and Robertson produces a great pass, allowing Hakpo to cut in and score. And Liverpool did not only take advantage of United's shape by directly going over the top. What we saw is that when Konate was on the ball in particular, and Fernandes was drawn in, Trent, much like Robertson on the far side, would have the room to receive. And with Salah high up on the right-hand side at times, Shaw was unlikely to press Trent, so the midfield of United would be drawn across instead in order to compensate for this shape. And with Núñez often operating in these regions as a centre forward, as well as Dalot, Robertson had all the room on the left-hand side to then receive the switch and look to make the difference high up. So this was an interesting situation where Fernandes actually almost won the ball, but the principle is the same, with Fernandes coming in off the left-hand side aggressively to press and leaving room for Trent on the right. So eventually Trent receives in space, with Shaw being tied up by Salah, leaving Robertson free to receive the switch and look to progress up the pitch. But I want to take a moment to look at how Klopp wisely changed Liverpool's defensive shape, as they were initially having similar problems to United, especially in the first half. From the goal kick, as well as in open play, Liverpool's pressing shape often had Hakpo deeper helping the midfield, while Salah and Núñez would come in off the flank to press the centre-backs, leading to a similar situation for United where their full-backs would potentially have that space. And if Liverpool had the time to set up this shape, whilst the ball was going wide, unlike United, Liverpool would be able to commit a midfielder to look to cover that full-back, which would help to protect their own full-back. And this was partially facilitated by Hakpo dropping deeper into the midfield. Hakpo's deeper, allowing Salah and Núñez ahead of him. So Henderson, as soon as he sees the ball go wide, can look to aggressively press the fullback, because as you can see, Hakpo is accounting for pressing Casemiro, though Varane is looking to make the overload. And seconds later we see similar on the other side, with that same front three shape, but now Elliott moving wider on the right. So as soon as Shaw receives, Elliott presses, because Hakpo is helping out the midfield. Another reason that Liverpool were able to do this more successfully is because when Liverpool were attacking, they had Hakpo in their ranks who would be dropping in to make the overload. However, Rashford is much less likely to do that, so it was more of a genuine midfield three, unless Fernandes did decide to invert. But especially in the first half, when Liverpool did not have the time to set up their defensive shape, we still saw their fullbacks having that space. If they were deeper, they could simply receive and look to drive higher up the pitch. But what we often commonly saw is that Shaw, in particular on this left-hand side, would push up high early to create a 2 versus 1 against Trent, so that if Trent was drawn in, Fernandes could look to make the run in behind or provide an option for progression. But if Trent stayed narrow, then Shaw would be able to receive and potentially cross. Salah's defending more narrow, opening up the pass to Shaw, with Fernandes tying up Trent. Salah defending more narrow allows Shaw behind him, and Fernandes is already making the run. And although he was offside, we can see the general idea, as Trent had 2 men to deal with. So in the second half, helped by having a 1-goal lead, Klopp changed his defensive shape, with Hakpo taking a more leading role, and Salah and Núñez more likely to drop wide to create more of a 4-5-1, meaning that the fullbacks were covered in this initial phase. So Liverpool have rotated in this situation, with Hakpo being wider, but we can see importantly, Salah, rather than being central, is defending wide. If United did play short in these situations, and Liverpool needed the extra central presser, rather than Salah coming in from wide, it would be Elliott, who would look to press the centre-back, whilst using his cover shadow, prevent the ball into Casemiro. But this new shape also contributes to one of Liverpool's goals. Salah and Núñez are defending wider, Elliott was the man applying the central pressure, but we also see Salah is able to press Shaw. And when Shaw looks to go central, Elliott intercepts. On the transition, it also made it easier for Liverpool to execute their plan of hitting hard behind Shaw with Salah, which they were looking to do even in the first half, but was most effective in the second. This day will go down in the Premier League history books and is a major setback for United, who had made such great progress. Liverpool hope that this result will give them the necessary boost to carry their top 4 challenge for the rest of the season. For the manager tactical score, Klopp's defensive tweaks, use of Hakpo dropping deep, and looking to hit hard with Salah behind Shaw all worked to a T, meaning he earns an 8.5. Ten Hag for once was not great with his in-game management and was outfoxed by Klopp, but United were also unlucky in some aspects, as basically everything Liverpool hit went in, so Ten Hag only earns a 3. But what are your thoughts? Drop them down below.
I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you might enjoy the content available on my Patreon. Not only does Patreon help to support the continued production of content, as I am a one-man team, but it also gives you early access to videos that will come on the channel. You'll also get exclusive videos, get to vote on polls, and so much more. And it's cheaper than ever, no longer having a tier system, so everyone on the Patreon gets access to all the content. So head over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple to check it out.
And a special thanks to my latest patrons like Kristen Linde, Twila Kaufman, and Wang Hao.
But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.